My beloved sisters, many people confuse silence with weakness. They think if you remain quiet when someone insults you, it means you have no courage, no power, no answer. But in reality, silence is not weakness, it is strength. It is far easier to respond with anger, to let your tongue run free, to fire back word for word. That is the path of ego. But the path of faith is different. The believer understands that silence in the face of provocation is not cowardice, it is bravery of the highest order, because it means you have chosen Allah over yourself. It means you have chosen your hereafter over your temporary pride. It means you have chosen to please your Creator instead of pleasing your own anger. This is not weakness, my sisters. This is strength that the angels themselves record. There are times when your silence will shake the heavens more than your words. Imagine a woman who is wronged in her home. She is accused falsely, her heart breaks, but she chooses to remain silent, raising her eyes to the skies and whispering in her heart, "Why Allah, you know the truth, and you are sufficient for me." That silence becomes a dua, a cry louder than thunder in the court of Allah. People may look at her and think, but Allah looks at her and says to the angels, "Bear witness, my servant has placed her trust in me. I will defend her." Subhanallah, what strength can be greater than that? We live in a world where speaking back, answering harshness with harshness, and defending your ego is considered empowerment. But in the scale of the hereafter, empowerment is very different. True empowerment is when you can hold your tongue for the sake of Allah. True empowerment is when you have the words ready, sharp, and burning to be released, but you close your lips and let your silence speak instead. This is harder than shouting, harder than insulting, harder than fighting. This is real strength. And this strength, my sisters, is a ladder that climbs directly to Jannah. When the Prophet I was asked about the definition of a strong person, he said it is not the one who can wrestle another to the ground, but the one who can control himself at the time of anger. Think about that. You may not be able to lift weights, you may not be physically powerful, but when you control your anger, when you remain silent in moments of provocation, you are stronger than the strongest athlete. Because physical strength only impresses people in this world, but self-control impresses the angels, and it secures your place in the next world. Sometimes your silence will be misunderstood. People will think you are afraid. They will think you have no answers. But you must remind yourself, I am not silent because I cannot speak. I am silent because I know my tongue is precious. Every word I say will be written, every response I give will be recorded, and I do not want my book of deeds stained with regret. The true believer values silence more than gold, because gold cannot buy you Jannah, but silence can. Now let us move to the second key. Silence protects your iman. My sisters, do you know how much damage a single word can do? A word can destroy a marriage. A word can sever the ties of family. A word can bring decades of love to an end. And yet, we often let our tongues loose without thinking. The Prophet A warned us again and again that most of the people who enter the fire will enter because of their tongues. It is the tongue that lies, the tongue that gossips, the tongue that insults, the tongue that spreads rumors. And in a moment of anger, the tongue can say things you regret for a lifetime. That is why silence is a shield. It protects your iman from being shattered by your own words. Think of a woman who is provoked by her in-laws. Words of anger rise to her lips. She wants to answer back. She wants to defend herself. But she holds her silence. She says nothing. She turns away. In that moment, she has saved her iman. Because if she had answered back with harshness, she might have sinned. She might have hurt someone. She might have displeased Allah. Her silence was not emptiness. It was protection. It was a fortress built around her faith. And how many times has Shaitan trapped us through our tongues? How many times have we spoken without thinking, only to regret it later? Silence breaks this trap. Shaitan whispers, show your anger, show your strength. But the believer whispers back to herself, no, I will not let Shaitan win. My silence is my sword. When you remain quiet, you cut through Shaitan's plan and you protect your heart from the poison of words. When a believer keeps silent in the face of provocation, she is not losing the battle, she is winning it. Because the real battlefield is not outside, it is inside. The war is not with people, the war is with your own ego, your pride, and the whispers of Shaitan. To remain quiet when you could explode with words is like holding back a flood with nothing but your bare hands. That effort, that self-control is what Allah loves, and that is what is recorded in your book of deeds. So many times people think they must always respond, they must always prove themselves, they must always defend. But sometimes silence is the strongest defense, because when you stay silent, you are saying, I do not need to prove myself to people. I only need to prove myself to Allah. You are saying my worth is not measured by how loudly I shout back, but by how deeply I trust my Lord. And that is strength. Remember that silence is not just about avoiding arguments, it is also about creating peace. A woman who holds her tongue brings peace to her home. She prevents small issues from growing into wars. She stops anger from spreading like fire. One moment of silence can extinguish a fire that would otherwise burn a family for years. This is strength because it takes more courage to hold your peace than to let your anger destroy what you love. Think of Salama, may Allah be pleased with her. She was known for her wisdom, her patience, and her ability to keep calm when others were quick to react. Her silence at the right time preserved harmony, and her words at the right time guided her family. Silence is not about being voiceless, it is about choosing the right time to use your voice. And when you choose silence for the sake of Allah, it becomes a form of ibadah, just like salah and fasting. The Prophet promised that whoever can guarantee what is between his jaws and what is between his legs, Allah will guarantee him Jannah. Imagine that, just by guarding the tongue. You are promised paradise, so how do you guard it? By silence. By choosing to say nothing when your words will harm, by choosing to stay quiet when your voice will add no value, by choosing to hold back when shaitan wants you to lash out. Now think about the second key: silence protects your iman. A woman who guards her tongue is a woman whose faith shines like a lamp in the darkness. Every time you are silent when tempted to gossip, you protect your iman. Every time you are silent when tempted to insult, you protect your iman. Every time you are silent when tempted to complain against the decree of Allah, you protect your iman. Silence becomes like a wall around your faith, keeping out the arrows of shaitan. There are moments when you may feel silence is costing you. You feel you are swallowing pain. You feel you are hiding your tears. You feel you are losing in the eyes of people. But in reality, you are winning in the sight of Allah. He sees your silence, He counts your patience, and He stores your reward where no one can take it from you. The people who mocked you will forget their words, but Allah will never forget your silence. There is a reason why the Prophet told us that whoever remains silent will be safe. Because silence is safety. When you choose silence, you protect yourself from sin, from regret, from shame. You protect your iman from being tarnished by the dust of angry words. And you protect your akhirah from being destroyed by careless speech. How many marriages could be saved if the tongue was controlled? How many friendships could be preserved if silence was chosen over harshness? How many hearts could remain unbroken if patience replaced anger? All it takes is silence. It may feel heavy, it may feel difficult, but it is lighter than carrying the burden of regret for the rest of your life. A woman once came to a scholar and asked, "What can I do to protect my iman? I pray, I fast. I give charity, but I feel my faith is still weak." He told her, "Guard your tongue and you will guard your iman." Because salah is light, fasting is patience, charity is purification, but the tongue can destroy all of them if it is not controlled. Silence, therefore, becomes the shield that protects all your other good deeds. There are moments when silence itself becomes a form of dakra. When you restrain yourself, you are silently saying Subhanallah, you are silently saying Alhamdulillah. You are silently saying Allah knows best. The angels hear this silent dakra even when you do not move your lips, and they record it as worship. And on the day of judgment, you will find pages filled with reward not for what you said, but for what you refused to say. Silence is also a teacher. It teaches you humility, it teaches you patience, and it teaches you reliance upon Allah. Every time you are silent when you want to speak, you are training your soul to submit. You are teaching your heart that not everything needs a reaction, not every insult needs a reply, not every wound needs to be shown. You are learning that the one who matters is Allah, and when He is pleased, the displeasure of people becomes irrelevant. This lesson cannot be learned from books or lectures. It is learned from the fire of trials, from the weight of insults, from the pain of being misunderstood, and from the healing silence that you choose for His sake. When you keep silent, you also protect the hearts of others. Sometimes a word you speak may wound someone in a way they never forget. The tongue is sharper than any knife, and the wound of a knife may heal, but the wound of a word may last a lifetime. How many children grew up broken because of harsh words spoken by their parents? How many wives carried scars in their souls because of cruel words from their husbands? How many sisters, how many mothers, how many daughters felt their hearts sink because of careless speech? And yet one moment of silence could have spared them. Silence is not just protection for yourself. Allah tells us in the Qur'an that not a single word is uttered except that it is written down by angels. Reflect on this, my sisters. Every word you speak has weight. Every insult is recorded. Every gossip is written. Every curse is preserved. And on the day of judgment, those words will rise against you. Leaves no trace. Silence is pure. Silence is safe. Silence is protection. And when silence is chosen for the sake of Allah, it is transformed into worship. There will be times in your life when silence feels unbearable. When you are accused of things you never did. When you are blamed for things you never said. When you are mocked for choices you made for Allah's sake. You will want to scream. You will want to defend yourself. You will want to prove your innocence. But sometimes the greatest proof is silence. Allah knows the truth and He will reveal it when the time is right. The Prophet himself endured lies, insults and mockery, but often he chose silence because his dignity was not in the hands of the people, it was in the hands of Allah. Follow his example and you will find peace in the storms of life. Silence also protects the heart from arrogance. When we argue too much, when we always try to win every conversation, when we insist on proving ourselves right, our hearts become inflated with pride. But when we remain silent, when we walk away from arguments, when we refuse to let our tongues drag us into ego battles, we humble ourselves before Allah. And Allah loves the humble. Silence becomes a way of crushing the ego, of reminding the soul that the purpose of speech is not victory over others, but submission to the truth. Think of the times you have remained silent and later thanked yourself for it. Maybe someone provoked you and you wanted to reply, but you didn't. Maybe you were angry and you wanted to shout, but you didn't. Later, when the anger had cooled, you realized how much harm you had avoided by keeping silent. Silence is not only protection for the present, it is protection for the future. It saves you from regret, from apologies, from shame. And that is why the Prophet promised safety to those who hold their tongues. The tongue is a gift, but it is also a test. With it, you can recite Qur'an, you can make dika, you can call upon Allah. But with the same tongue, you can also insult, gossip, and destroy. Silence tips the scale in your favor. When you are silent, your tongue is safe. When you are silent, your iman is protected. When you are silent, your record is clean. And when you finally do speak, your words carry more weight, more beauty, and more blessing. Because they are rare and precious. Silence is also a shield against Shaitan. He knows that one angry word can undo hours of worship. One insult can erase the effect of years of kindness. He whispers in your ear, say it. Answer back. Don't stay quiet. But when you choose silence, you shatter his plan. You prove that you are not a slave to his whispers, but a servant of Allah. This is why silence is not passive. It is active resistance against the forces that want to drag you into sin. And do not forget, my sisters, that silence itself is sometimes an answer. When you do not reply to an insult, you are answering with dignity. When you do not argue with ignorance, you are answering with wisdom. When you do not waste words in vain talk, you are answering with purpose. Silence speaks louder than words when it is chosen for the sake of Allah. There will be people in your life who will test your silence. They will push you, they will mock you, they will accuse you, hoping you would break and answer back. But remember, you are not staying silent for them, you are staying silent for Allah. And the one for whom you are silent will reward you in ways they can never imagine. Your silence may earn you Jannah, while their words may drag them into regret. When you feel the weight of silence pressing on your heart, remember the promise of Allah. Indeed, the patient will be given their reward without measure. Silence in the face of hardship is patience. Silence in the face of insults is patience. Silence in the face of anger is patience. And patience without measure means reward without limit. Do not think of what you are losing in the moment. Think of what you are gaining for eternity. Silence is also a way to turn inward. When you close your mouth, your heart opens. You begin to hear yourself more clearly. You begin to hear the whispers of your soul. You begin to hear the Quran echo in your chest. In silence, you reflect, you connect, you grow. The woman who is always talking may not hear her own heart, but the woman who embraces silence will find wisdom rising within her. Allah places light in the hearts of those who restrain their tongues. When you hold back your words and swallow your pain, you might think nobody notices. You might think your silence is hidden, buried deep inside. But Allah hears silence louder than any sound. He hears the words you never spoke. He hears the tears you never shed in front of people. He hears the conversations you have only in your heart. Silence to the people of this world is emptiness. But to Allah, silence is a language, a dua, a plea, a scream that never needed to be voiced. When you remain silent for His sake, you are speaking directly to Him without uttering a word. Think of the mother whose heart aches because of her children. She wants to cry, she wants to complain, but she chooses silence. She whispers in her heart, Ya Allah, you see me. That unspoken whisper reaches the throne of Allah. Think of the wife who holds back her tears when her husband misunderstands her. She keeps quiet, but inside her soul is saying, Ya Allah, I leave this matter to you. That silence is not wasted, it ascends as worship. Think of the young woman mocked for her hijab. She walks her gaze, she walks away, she says nothing. People think she has no answer, but Allah hears her silence saying, My Lord is sufficient for me. The Prophet A once told us that Allah does not look at your appearance or your wealth, but He looks at your hearts and your deeds. Silence is a deed of the heart. It is an action unseen by people but magnified by Allah. Sometimes your silence is worth more than 1,000 prayers because it is born out of deep patience, restraint and sincerity. Silence becomes your secret conversation with your Creator. When you choose not to complain to people, you are telling Allah, I only want you to hear me. That is a level of trust, a level of faith, a level of tawakkul that lifts your silence into the heavens. And do not think your silence goes unanswered. Every unspoken word of pain is answered with mercy. Every quiet tear is answered with reward. Every moment of restraint is answered with Jannah. When silence is chosen in hardship, it transforms into daikra. You may not say Subhanallah with your tongue, but your silence is saying it. You may not say Alhamdulillah with your lips, but your silence is declaring it. You may not say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah aloud, but your silence is embodying it. The angels record these silent declarations as worship, and on the day of judgment you will find them glowing on your scale. Do you realize, Meisters, that silence is sometimes higher than speech? Speech can be tainted with ego, with pride, with showing off. But silence is pure. Silence is sincere. Silence is for Allah alone. Nobody praises you for your silence. Nobody claps for your silence. Nobody even notices your silence. That is what makes it so valuable, because only Allah knows and only Allah rewards. When you are silent, Allah hears what no one else can hear. He hears the battle raging in your heart. He hears the patience you are clinging to. He hears the trust you are holding on to. He hears your silence say, Ya Allah, I will not break, because I know you are with me. And Allah responds to that silent plea in ways you cannot imagine. This is why silence itself is worship. We think worship is only prayer, fasting, charity, but worship is every act done for Allah's sake. When you control your tongue for His sake, that is worship. When you stay silent to avoid harming someone, that is worship. When you swallow your pride and keep quiet instead of arguing, that is worship. Worship is not only in your salamat, it is in your silence in the kitchen, in the marketplace, in your home, in your heart. Every time you want to lash out but don't, that moment is recorded as worship. Every time you want to argue but walk away. Every time you want to prove yourself but choose dignity instead, that is worship. This is why silence is not wasted. It is rewarded. It is not empty. It is filled with barakah. It is not weakness. It is a hidden act of ibadah that will shine for you when your deeds are weighed. The Prophet A told us that whoever remains silent will be safe. Safety in this dunya, safety in the grave, safety on the day of judgment. Why? Because silence is a shield. It guards your faith, it guards your heart, it guards your record. When you speak, you risk sin. When you are silent, you are safe. And when your silence is for Allah, you are not only safe, you are rewarded. Think of Maryam Bifi, the mother of Isa. When she was commanded to keep silence after giving birth, she obeyed. Her silence was not emptiness, it was worship. Her silence was an act of obedience that elevated her status. Silence has always been a path of worship for those whom Allah loves. When you are silent for Allah, you are walking the same path as those who came before you. When silence rises from the heart of a believer, it ascends as worship more powerful than words. Think about the moment when anger burns inside you and your tongue trembles with words that could cut deeper than a sword. If you let them out, you might win the moment but lose the mercy of Allah. If you remain silent, you might appear weak to people, but you will be strong in the sight of your... That silence born from patience is heavier than gold on the scale of deeds. It is not silence of the tongue only, but silence of the ego, silence of the pride, silence of the nafs that always wants to be heard. This is why silence speaks to Allah louder than cries of rage or voices of justification. Imagine standing in prayer. You do not speak aloud your thoughts, but Allah knows them. You do not voice your needs, but He already hears them. In the same way, when you are silent in your trials, Allah knows the conversation happening inside your chest. He knows the dua you never spoke. He knows the trust you placed in Him by staying quiet. Silence becomes a prayer without words, a dua without sound, a plea without speech. And Allah responds to it with His mercy because He is closer to you than your own jugular vein. Many times we think worship must be visible. We want to show our salah, we want to display our charity, we want others to know our good deeds. But the most beloved acts to Allah are often the hidden ones, and silence is the hidden worship that nobody sees. People do not applaud you for staying quiet. They do not thank you for restraining your tongue. They do not reward you for walking away instead of fighting back. But Allah sees, Allah thanks, Allah rewards. And the reward from Him is eternal. Sometimes silence is the loudest form of dhikr. Every time you hold back a word that could hurt someone, your silence is saying Subhanallah. Every time you remain quiet instead of complaining about your hardship, your silence is saying Alhamdulillah. Every time you walk away from an argument, your silence is saying La ilaha illa Allah. You may not move your lips, but your silence vibrates with the remembrance of Allah in the unseen world. The angels hear it, they record it, and on the day of judgment you will see pages filled with reward you do not even remember earning. That is the power of silence as worship. Do not think Allah overlooks the silence of your patience. He heard you when you chose not to answer back. He saw you when you swallowed your pride. He counted the tears you hid. He wrote down the words you never said, and He will return them to you as rivers in Jannah, as palaces of light, as crowns of honor. Every unspoken word for His sake will return as a treasure no one can take from you. There is a story of a scholar who was insulted in public. People expected him to respond, to defend himself, to argue back. When asked why, he said, my silence is my reply. If I speak, I may please my anger but displease Allah. If I stay silent, I may displease my anger but please Allah. I choose to please Allah. That silence was his act of worship. That silence elevated him above the one who insulted him. That silence became his shield and his honor. Think of Maryam Dawidi, commanded by Allah to remain silent when people accused her. Her silence was not emptiness, it was obedience, it was worship, it was a sign of her trust in Allah. Allah Himself defended her. Allah Himself made the infant Isa speak in her defense. When you choose silence for Allah, you do not need to defend yourself. Allah will defend you better than you ever could. This is the power of silence as worship, and silence is not only about avoiding harm, it is also about creating space for goodness. When you are silent, you listen more. You reflect more, you observe more, your heart opens to the Qur'an, your ears open to wisdom, your soul opens to guidance. Silence is fertile ground where faith grows, because it removes the noise that distracts you from Allah. When you choose silence, you are saying, I want to hear my Lord more than I want to hear my ego. Sometimes silence is better than even good speech. The Prophet A taught us that whoever believes in Allah and the last day should speak good or remain silent. If what you have to say is not clearly good, then silence is the safer worship. How many arguments could be avoided? How many wounds could be prevented? How many hearts could be healed if silence was chosen more often? Silence is not the absence of words, it is the presence of wisdom. It is the decision that your akira is more important than your opinion. My sisters, do not underestimate the value of silence in your daily life. In the kitchen, when tempers rise, silence can save love. In your family, when misunderstandings erupt, silence can preserve respect. In society, when ignorance surrounds you, silence can protect your dignity. Silence is worship not only in prayer, but in every moment you restrain yourself for the sake of Allah. Even in moments of joy, silence can be worship. Sometimes boasting about blessings leads to envy, to arrogance, to showing off. But remaining silent, thanking Allah privately, guarding your blessings in your heart, that silence becomes gratitude. And Allah promises that if you are grateful, He will increase you. Silence can therefore be gratitude in disguise, a shield that protects your blessings from being tainted. Do you see how silence carries so many forms of worship? Patience, gratitude, trust, obedience, dak, all of them can be embodied in silence. That is why silence is not wasted time. It is worship time. It is not empty space. It is filled with reward. And remember, the angels who record your deeds also record your silence. When you refrain from saying something harmful, they write it down as worship. When you walk away instead of arguing, they record it as patience. When you swallow your anger and stay silent, they write it as strength. Your silence will fill your record on the day of judgment until you are amazed by how much reward you earn from moments you thought were nothing. Silence is not only worship for yourself, it is mercy for others. It spares them from your anger, your frustration, your harshness. It gives them peace instead of pain. And mercy is beloved to Allah. The more mercy you show, the more mercy He will show you. Your silence may be the reason someone else feels safe with you. And Allah loves those who make others feel safe. That silence then becomes a double act of worship, mercy for people and worship for Allah. In truth, silence is a form of sabr. Sabr is the key to Jannah. The Prophet A said, no one has been given a gift better and more vast than patience. And silence is patience in its purest form. It is patience of the tongue, patience of the heart, patience of the ego. That patience will build your home in paradise, brick by brick, reward by reward, moment by moment. So when the weight of silence feels heavy, remind yourself of the gardens waiting for you. Every time you hold back, you are planting a tree in Jannah. Every time you keep quiet, you are laying a brick in your palace. Every time you remain silent, you are adding jewels to your crown. Your silence in this world becomes your beauty in the next.